Super Perform Gamescast. As always, I am one of your hosts, John, aka Mr. Migative on Twitter. I'm already a little depressed because it looks like my video is a little choppy. Looks like my video's a little choppy, guys. How am I looking on the video? Am I looking okay? Is anybody looking at the stream right now? I want to make sure that
it is choppy, but you know what? This is how it belongs. So what you're
saying is that we're on brand.
Yes.
Excellent.
This is how it's supposed to be.
Excellent. I love it. All right.
I literally look like a Mega Man character.
You do a little bit.
Sweating so much that there is a metallic sheen that I think is coming through in the Twitch chat right now.
You do a little bit. You look like Absinthe Man.
Absinthe Man. Get power up that is inability to finish a Resident Evil game in a timely fashion.
Get powered up with Stumbling Shot. Or Stumbling Slide. Get powered with Stumbling Slide.
Get powered up with inability to form coherent thoughts.
Every time you're on the podcast now, I'm gonna play that Mega Man boss theme introduction, but it's gonna be all distorted. It's gonna be like dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. That's all. I'm never ever gonna get that image out of my head. Poor Zach in the corner is like, he's like, Zach's
this
like,
is a great start.
Zach's like, this is a fantastic start to the podcast.
On the rails.
It looks like the video on the stream is a little better though, so that's good. Maybe things are stabilizing. Anyway, as you guys can see, we got a small crowd tonight. We got a small podcast tonight, but we got a good one.
Just the boys.
Just the men, Brandon. Just the men.
Just the men.
Brandon, are you? What was that?
You're putting yourself out there.
I am. Brandon, are you still cooking dinner?
No, I'm done.
What'd you have for dinner?
I finished just at 7. A fine 4-course, 3 calendars TV dinner.
Ooh.
Nice.
That's a lot.
Steak, potato, green bean casserole. It was a real feast.
Brandon, what's the dessert?
There was no dessert.
What the hell? What?
You gotta get a hungry man for the dessert.
This summer episode is actually all just food. We're just gonna talk food tonight.
This is the Super Deformed Cuisine Cast.
In memory of Anthony Bourdain.
Too soon.
Come on.
Too soon, man. Oh my lord. This podcast is already a beautiful disaster. Anyway, welcome everybody to SDGC. As you guys can see, we have fucking Anthony on the show. And I just want to point out that is actually how he's listed in my phone.
Fucking Anthony.
He's actually listed as fucking Anthony in my phone, and I tweeted that. I tweeted out a picture of it, and Anthony, for whatever reason, thought this was the greatest thing he's ever seen.
It's my favorite. I want to be referred to that way by all people everywhere at all times. That is a deep pleasure for me.
Whatever panel you're on at PAX next year, I want you to be introduced as fucking Anthony.
Anthony.
That's all I need. That's all I want, man.
Well, you have to give the context. The most recent time that you declared that I was fucking Anthony was I'm on my current summer internet sabbatical. And the first time I popped up on Twitter in about 10 days was to tweet a picture of old Luke Skywalker making out with Kazuma Kiryu.
Yes. That was definitely a Twitter thing that you did on Twitter. But you know what? That was probably the most Anthony return to form I've seen. So, and I've seen some good shit from you, man. So Anthony's here, and it's been kind of a slow week for games, and that's to be expected. It's the summer; things kind of slowed down, especially in the weeks and months after E3. There's not a lot of huge new releases, except for, of course, next week when
things start getting interesting in August. But June and July are just.
But July has the most important release of the year, which is Octopath Traveler. And Zach, Octopath Traveler, my man, John.
You saw what the director
You mean
declared.
Final
Mm.
Fantasy 6 too?
Oh,
Final
it's so.
Fantasy 6 too.
Oh, I saw it. I saw that shit. I saw the director was like, "This is a spiritual sequel to Final Fantasy VI," and immediately I exploded into a cloud of little laughing pixelated Kefkas. Like it let your mind grasp that image, if you know what I'm talking about, for a minute. But it was like I was sitting at work in my office, and there's like only a few people at work, right? Because it's it's the week of 4th of July, nobody wants to come to work. So I'm sitting in my office with the door closed, and I saw that quote, and I just went like a very audible. I was like, "Yes!" Like in my office, and somebody opened the door and said, "Hey man, are you okay?" And I was like, and I literally, so I looked up this person, and this person's like 60 years old, and I was like, I couldn't even help it. I was like, "Motherfucking Octopath Traveler is a spiritual successor to Final Fantasy VI." And the guy's like, "I have no idea what any of that is." And I was like, "Don't worry about it, Jim. Just get out of my
You're
fucking
like, you
office."
don't know how to get go-go in the sandworm, dude?
do you
Come
not
on.
do you not even know how to resurrect General Leo? Do you not know this? Spoiler alert, you can't. Anyway,
Which is unfortunate because General Leo is the best character in the game.
he's definitely the most overpowered character in the game. General
I
Leo
fucking love General Leo.
General Leo is fucking great. Poor Zach in the corner is like, "Oh my god,
I haven't
Final
played
Fantasy
any of these
VI.
games.
Like, I don't care."
Yeah.
Zach's like,
Yep.
"I don't give a fuck."
No, I'm here.
General Leo is one of the biggest badasses in all of Final Fantasy.
He is.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna get the show on the road. So I thought, since things are so slow, a good topic for discussion is something that, I was playing Super Metroid a few days ago. I was taking a break from. I'm doing another playthrough of Bravely Second, and I was playing Super Metroid, and I thought to myself, you know what? As much as I love this game, there are things about it that I don't like, and then that kind of led me down the path of thinking about games that I love, and then considering the things that I don't love about those games, the things that I wish were improved. And that took me further down the rabbit hole of, well, what about games that I hate? Well, hate is a strong word, but what about games that I don't like, that I generally don't care for, but do certain things very well, things that I wish would be represented in games that I actually do like. And so I thought that would be in kind of an interesting dissection of games that we both enjoy and abhor at the same time. And I want to start. You guys want to start with games we love or games we don't like?
Start from a place of start the negative, John. Start
Okay.
At the, start
Okay.
at the place of ugliness, you know.
All right. Okay. So here's my first one. I really want to kick this off, if you guys don't mind, because I was teasing Anthony with this, because this is a game that I think Anthony will know, but I almost promise you Zach will not know, and Brandon may or may not know it. But has anybody here ever played Never Dead?
Oh,
I know about it very well. It was famously shown at the E3 Konami 2011
Yes.
press conference.
the 2010, right?
2010,
2010.
I apologize,
The
yeah.
extreme.
The extreme.
So-
Konami press
So
conference.
for anybody who doesn't know what Never Dead is, like Zach, it looks like Zach doesn't know what Never Dead is. Never Dead was a third person shooter where the big gimmick was tearing off pieces of your body and throwing them at things.
You were immortal. You were on.
Yeah, you were immortal, and so
like
twisting your head off and like throwing it, and there were so right off the bat, the game was awful. Like, it was a terrible fucking game, right?
It was one of the more poorly reviewed games of all of
It
last
sounds like the
generation.
initial pitch is, Dead Space, but what if the opposite?
That's not. But only imagine all the characters are stale. There's every shitty dude bro third person trope you could possibly think of exists in a singularity in Never Dead. The character literally, he looked like Auron, didn't he? Anthony, he looked
I don't
like
even
fucking.
remember.
He sort of looks. The way I've always described the existence of Never Dead was that when Mad World came into the world, like Platinum made
Yes.
Mad World, and it was such a beautiful, shining object that reality had to balance it out with the exact opposite version of Mad World.
Yes, that's
The biggest piece of shit version of Mad World had to be born at the same time, and that's Never Dead.
so
the Negaverse.
I was
Yes, the nega version.
I was a
Yeah.
dumbass and I picked up Never Dead. Why? I don't know. Like
Why? Yes,
for the
why?
same reason that
The
I was.
reviews
you
were
know-
like, go look at the Metacritic scores.
It's pretty
But
bad.
the
Like fucking 40
pedigree,
or something.
the pedigree was there. It was made by Rebellion. and the Aliens versus Predator games by Rebellion.
Yeah,
they're not
they're
not
okay.
the best, but they're they have their charms.
Rebellion also made Rogue Warrior.
Yeah.
But the thing about Never
You're
Dead
not
is that
wrong.
like within an hour, I was like, oh my god, this game is fucking garbage. But there was one mechanic. There was one mechanic in the game where I was like, this is I think what angered me about the game even more is that there were small, tiny flashes, mind you, but flashes of brilliance
Like most Rebellion games.
in the
Bad,
the
but
core
flashes
design for the
of
game.
brilliance.
And a great example is there is one boss, this huge boss you have to fight, Zach, and you got your gun, you have to kill this guy from the inside, so you tear off your arm, and you throw it inside his mouth.
Hell
and then
yeah.
you pull the trigger and you're shooting him from the inside with your severed arm. And I was and when I did this, I was like, holy shit, that's fucking awesome.
It is a Japanese game.
I was like, why
Oh, wait, that's not
can't
Japanese,
the
that's
rest of the game be like this? Like, you can.
Rebellion is British.
I recommend everybody after this podcast go pull up a YouTube video of Never Dead. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's Ride to Hell Redemption bad, because it's not. But I would say that it's in the top 10 worst games of the 7th generation. But there were flashes of brilliance in this game. Like Brandon said, it's a Rebellion game, so that's kind of how it goes.
John, I wanted to mention, I made fun of you for buying Never Dead, right? After being from the E3 Konami press conference. I bought 99 Nights too. I don't know why. I knew it was gonna be bad, and I bought it, and I bought it at a high price.
We all look like we all have those badges of shame, right? Like, we go out, we buy the game, where we're like, you know what, I don't care, it's good, I'm
I have
rebelling
some really
against
shitty games on my shelf.
I think the worst game I ever bought day one is Bulletstorm, and I bought it for the Gears of War beta.
Oh,
Bulletstorm wasn't so
amazing
bad.
game. I will not stand by that.
Bulletstorm is a 2.5 out of 5 summer video game.
all right.
Zach,
All right,
If you don't care about gameplay, like what? If you only care about the story, yeah, it's a 2.5.
I'll give you that it is like a confection, Zach. It is something you do in an afternoon, but bad is bad.
Well, here's my thing. The gameplay is good. The game. I've already derailed you, John.
No. I want this to be a conversation.
The gameplay is good.
But yes, if you want to talk about the sense of humor and the character,
the sense of humor is so grating. It is so Cliffy B.
It's one
bleached
note. It's
spike
one note, and
hair.
it goes on for like 10 hours.
Yeah, it like usually I can put aside a bad story, but it's just it thinks it's telling something interesting, and it thinks it's funny, and it's neither.
So like the most annoying thing, the most annoying thing about Bulletstorm to me, Zach, and I enjoyed Bulletstorm for what it was, but like there were two things. One, the main character was clearly trying to be Dom from Gears of War, like 100% Dom. I was like, oh wow, like you can't go. Holy shit!
I mean, the game is a little bit of a parody, but that's the thing. Like, you can criticize it doesn't.
But that
sometimes
fucking bad guy, oh my god, what was his name?
It has a very unresolved ending. There's a lot of
that colonel who talks like, yeah, soldier, woo,
yeah,
Worst, yeah, exactly.
Worst villain on the side of Tobias Bruckner.
The only thing that I remember still being funny about that game, and I'm sure there's a million articles from back then about this, was that early in the game your ship is crashing and the emergency lights are the Xbox 360 Red Ring of Death lights. And like that was a pretty good joke. But that was
I like Bulletstorm for the gameplay, and the art direction was very good for like the alien world that they were on.
That whole
that's what I
planet,
like it for.
The when you go to the section of the world that is like a theme park, and you have to take control of what is essentially Grimlock from Transformers.
Yes.
That is a great sequence, and
But this game was also like.
Listen, if this is the worst game I've bought in, I must not have bought very many bad games.
No, it's like a good 9 out of 10 game.
But Zach, what's a game?
Wow.
So is Bulletstorm your game where you want to talk about where you?
No.
Okay, all right. So let's hear that.
So we are doing bad games that have elements of good stuff in it. Is that what we're starting
elements
with?
of goodness is the term I like to use.
Elements of goodness that are an otherwise not so good game would be 2015 Mad Max. Is not a very good video game.
No, it's not.
But
I was very
that game
conflicted
has
on
some
it.
shit that works. Particularly the driving is incredible.
Art direction, Jesus
The art, no,
Christ.
the art direction's pretty
Yeah.
pretty good too.
Like some of those horizons are incredible looking.
No,
like, all those-
it is a visually it's a gorgeous game, and the driving is so good. And I've heard this comparison before, and I hate to ape it, but it was such a good comparison. It's like a lot of games, it feels like you are a set camera behind the car, but in this game, it always felt like you were in a chase car from a movie following the main character, and so the camera always slogs behind. And there's this great sense of speed that come with it.
yeah, the
obviously the
presentation is amazing.
Yeah, it was great. It didn't come together. Avalanche didn't quite pull it off. But there are some really, really cool, interesting ideas in that game. And the driving is phenomenal. It does seem like a game that I think if they had a second chance, they could do it. Rage, obviously the upcoming game from Avalanche.
Yeah,
maybe it's kind of touching
I mean,
on that.
so what I liked about it was like so the good idea was like say the risk reward of going out in the storms to like loot.
Yeah,
those, like,
and the storms,
really,
the storms were
valuable
phenomenal.
However, it's a good idea, but poor execution because basically the only way to get powerful in the game is you just go out in the storm, and then it's like an exponential growth because the more you go in the storm, the more you'll be able to upgrade, and then all you do is just go out in the storms and
It's
then
also
Right.
the overworld blow.
turn into a god.
Like,
Oh yeah.
just get
And it
90% of the side missions out of Mad Max.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I spent 50
Just
hours with
Well,
that.
and like a specific bad part of that game was the way they did the Ubisoft towers, where you had to really slowly blow up.
Oh my
a
god, those
balloon
are
to
the
go up,
worst.
which
Oh
was
yeah,
very
that's
bad.
awful.
Which
Like,
was
how do you make climbing up a building not fun?
Yeah, if it were
raise
really,
a
like-
hot air balloon.
and the thing is, it doesn't feel very Mad Maxy. Like in my mind, Mad Max is like you should pull it and it like slingshots
yeah, it
you
made
up.
no sense. It made no
Um,
sense whatsoever. I hate
here's-
it.
But there is some good stuff in that. I think what kind of exacerbated it is it came out 3 months after a very good Mad Max movie.
Yes.
And 2, it came out Prime Game Season the same day as Metal Gear Solid 5.
It sure did.
It sure
And so it
did.
makes it really easy. The thing is Mad Max in a year like 2011 would have been a lot better received, I think.
2006. Like,
All right,
this is,
all right,
like,
all
first
right,
year
all
of
right,
Xbox
all right.
360, we would be talking about it like it was a legend. But
Yeah.
that game came out like May, Witcher 3, June,
Yeah.
Batman Arkham Knight, September, Metal Gear Solid 5.
Also, you had
That's
Dying
it.
Light, which had more like.
Yeah, that's
meaningful
right, that's
content
right.
Same year.
You know
Yeah,
what- I was just gonna say, you know what bugged me about Mad Max? I played about 30 hours of the game before I decided I'd had enough, right? And like you said, like there were flashes of there were good things. Like the combat sucked. Like I hated the combat in the game. Like I'm talking like the hand-to-hand combat. Tried so hard to do its Arkham Knight thing.
The
And it just,
presentation
Okay.
was good, like the sound effects were good.
yeah,
like,
and
the animation
it
was good.
has some pretty good wrestling moves in that.
The-
in that
Yeah,
combat.
yeah.
the shotgun was
But it's not-
awesome. Blowing somebody away with
very
the
basic
sawed-off
Batman
shotgun was awesome. But what
Yeah.
honestly, and this is gonna sound petty as shit, but what killed that game for me was I can't remember his fucking name, but that idiot in the back of the car the entire time, constantly
Oh,
screaming,
God.
"Come on,
What?
Saint! Let's go,
What?
Saint! We gotta get this crap!" I'm like, oh, dude, he
whoa,
was
whoa, whoa.
Chumbucket,
I
or
was-
whatever
I
the
was
fuck his
pretty
name was.
indifferent on
Like,
it.
oh, he was the
He
worst.
is the good character
no,
in that
he was
game.
terrible.
He is the good character
He's
in that
constantly
game.
like he's constantly like slamming on the hood of the car and saying like, "Saint, come on, Saint, let's go!" Like, oh my
John,
God,
that is called good character
no,
writing,
it
my
was
dude.
it was like the meth guy from
Okay,
Grand Theft Auto
okay.
5, only
Okay,
on endless loop
compared.
for the rest of it was terrible.
First of all, if you
No.
think about the movie, he's the closest character to Mad Max 2015 movie. In terms of writing, I think the character of Mad Max in the game is bad.
Terms
I think
of
all of the
writing?
women. I think all of the women in the game are written terribly, which is
yeah,
pretty disappointing.
Agreed.
I would say the villain is bad. I would say they really don't understand the world of Mad Max. But I would say this chum character, despite being annoying,
He was
is
so
a
bad.
pretty good Mad Max character.
He was so-
He definitely feels like he's out of Thunderdome.
I'm inclined to agree with this,
Hey,
actually.
wait, wasn't the bad guy's name like Scabby Scrotum or something like that? Like, what the hell was his name?
Something
Like,
Scrotus.
yeah,
Something
it was like
Scrotus.
Scabby Scrotum or something.
It's like Lord
Yeah.
Scrotus or
Scrotus,
something.
Yeah.
Scabrous,
Pretty
Scrotumus Maximus, whatever his name was. Like,
Yeah.
That's his Transformer name.
Like I said,
Jesus
it didn't seem like the Avalanche didn't really seem like they understood a lot of what Mad Max was good at. They seemed like they liked the bad stuff in Mad Max.
Yeah.
This podcast is so bad. I love it.
This was a good answer to this topic.
It actually
Thank
really
you.
is. It actually really that was a good one.
All right. Somebody else, please.
All right, let's move on to Anthony. Anthony, why don't you carry us?
All right, so a game I hate, and we should talk about things that I love from a game that I hate. That's what you want, Jack?
That's what I want. That's what I'm asking for. That's
Zach,
what I'm asking for.
Are we doing this? Are we gonna take this plunge
Oh,
together?
Jesus
Please.
Christ.
Oh.
So
Please.
I think that no game has come out in the past 3 years that I hate more than The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
This hurts me.
Now,
Physically hurts
okay,
me.
now that's a little spicier than I was ready.
That's
And-
zestier.
okay.
That's zestier than I was expecting, Anthony.
That's
Okay.
I detest Zelda Breath of the Wild, and the reason I detest it is that after 77 hours of playing this game, I continue to want to play The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild because the art, the music,
Yeah.
the layout of the world, the
Mhm.
animation of the characters, the way it just feels to be walking across the landscape is peerless. There's nothing else like it. Zach, remind me, when you're in like the tropical corner of the map
Yeah.
and there's the island, what is the island called that you can finally get out to? And on the island, when you arrive, you are stripped of all of your items.
Yes,
all of
yes,
your
it's the
weapons.
challenge island.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yep.
think it's called.
Challenge Island. Things like that are there's nothing else like it. Those are amazing. And standing between me and all of these magical, whimsical, elegant things is a bullshit, horrible litany of chores. The game says, "Oh, wouldn't you love to go to this magical realm of freedom? Get a job, sir."
But that's
is
what
Breath of the
Hyrule
Wild
was.
says.
It was a magical realm of freedom.
A magical realm of freedom where it says, "Oh, would you like to get the Master Sword? Here, go and do these awful motion control
No,
puzzles."
they were great. What is
One
Anthony?
after another in shrine after shrine after shrine. "Oh, do you want to be able to fill your stamina bar?" Their needless stamina bar that adds nothing to the game or the experience of playing it. Here, beat all of these shrines. "Oh, would you like to heal your character?" Well, you better spend upwards of 15 minutes standing in front of a cook pot, going through a tedious menu, selecting each ingredient every single time.
Do you know those cartoons where you've got like the thermostat and it slowly fills up with the red and it's shaking and then it's like at the top and it's that's like Zach down in the corner right now.
No,
Zach-
honestly, I'm not mad. I think I'm not mad. I'm not mad. No, there's a lot of tedious shit in that game, and I think the dungeons are like easily the easiest thing to bash because they're not dungeons.
Yeah.
No, I think a lot of what you're saying is right, and I would say that game is at its best when you're on things like that Challenge Island, where it feels like a really, really pure meditation of what they wanted to build.
There's no boundary between you and the game in that place.
Yeah, and I
There's
think
nothing standing in your way, which I
and
love.
I think what they maybe got wrong in that game, or I mean, what I kind of bounced off of, and I think it's what you're bouncing off of, is there's a lot of really cool systems work, like physics and that sort of thing, that let you kind of make a sandbox. But then there's the same systems that kind of bulk your character down, or like the idea of like you cannot play that game for 30 minutes and feel like you're making good progress. Like you just can't. And I would agree, the menu system is kind of fueled by nostalgia and not so much accessibility.
Well, it's fueled by the design around a touchscreen. Like,
Sure.
It's very clearly a game where everybody was saying, you're going to be holding a one-touch tablet in front of you, and it's going to be very easy to flick these things around. And they never did any work.
It's almost like it was in development for 6 years.
Who knew?
Like,
Yeah.
So like I love Breath of the Wild. Like it's in one of my favorite games this generation. There's a reason I've got like 180 fucking hours in this game. But at the same time, I recognize that just like any game, I think this is a good game to talk about. It doesn't do everything perfectly. And if I could change one thing about Breath of the Wild, it would be, well, you know what? Two things. If I could change two things about Breath of the Wild, one would be
item durability.
I wouldn't necessarily get rid of
Take
it.
it out.
That's it.
I
It's
wouldn't.
interesting.
I wouldn't
Give him
necessarily
a
get.
sword.
I wouldn't necessarily get rid of it. I would make weapons sturdier because every smith in Hyrule fucking sucks at his job. So some of those now I do understand that the game throws weapon after weapon after weapon after weapon at you, right? So I never really ran out of weapons, but there were those moments where, like when you find something like the blade of the sword of the edge of duality, for example, right? Like a cool named sword or like a fiery broadsword. You can't get attached to this weapon because it's going to be gone, and there's no way to repair them. Or if there were a system to repair your weapons, I would have taken that as well. Or as Anthony said, it's a Zelda game. I want to use the Master Sword. Just let me use the Master Sword.
I think that if this were a Western game, obviously if it were made by a Western studio, it would probably turn out differently. But I think if it were a Western game, they would end up doing what some of the Deus Ex and Dishonored games did, where they have various toggles of difficulty or different things. Like if you could say, like, you know what, I want weapon durability, but rather than it just breaking, I want to become less powerful over time and I have to repair it. I think that there are a lot of really good ideas there that just are either too punishing or time consuming. It's a good fucking game and I really like it, but it's far from the perfect game. Better than Mario Odyssey.
I always throw this out there when I talk about Breath of the Wild. I'm never gonna say it's a bad game. Like, I would never ever say it's bad. I'm just gonna say that I hate it.
It's not for you. And I think that's it's important to recognize that. And that's good. Not enough people say, I don't like this game, but that doesn't make it a bad game. It's just not for me.
Right. Well, John, when you presented this entire topic to me of something you hate about a game that you love and something you love about a game that you hate, I realized that, in a lot of ways, for me, it's always balancing the exact same thing. There's one thing that defines whether I fall in love with a game or don't. And it's how that game approaches grind. Yep. Like, I think almost every game, every single video game that you ever play revolves around repetitive activity. You're going to be doing something over and over and over again, whether it's Tetris or, Breath of the Wild or Shadowgate or whatever.
Good Shadowgate.
Just dropping Shadowgate in there. But any single time you approach any of these things, it's how does it approach that repetition? How does it approach that grind? And I can think of games that do have the exact same sort of repetition and ceaseless repetition of a challenge that you see in Breath of the Wild, where you are not rewarded with something permanent in the same way that Breath of the Wild says, go fight this giant flying ice dragon and fight them for a really long time, and at the end of it you get a spear that you can one goblin in the face with.
You can hit a goblin within it, it's gone.
And it's gone. You can do that right in another game. For me, Breath of the Wild doesn't do it. But yeah, man. That was mine.
Brandon, what you got, man?
Yeah, what do you got, Brandon?
Oh, so for me, I want to do kind of an entire series because I feel like there's some more.
Oh, let's do it. No, I'm ready for this.
It's I hate the Assassin's Creed series. From 1 to fucking whatever the hell came out last year.
You're not alone.
So why?
But they certainly do some many great things.
Are you gonna unpack that?
Expound on that, Brandon.
Brandon's just gonna leave it out there.
No, I'm just gonna dangle it out.
Brandon's just gonna leave it out there and tease us.
Yeah. So if the world design, right, is incredible, and the way that they make each game a different time period is impressive. Like the gameplay might be repetitive, like the same from year to year to year, but the way that you go from different time periods. It's a great tourism as a series. It's a great tourism simulator, even if it's not historically accurate. That doesn't matter. It's just giving you a sense of being in that time and place is strong enough that it carries the entire series on its back. I think that's what people play it for.
And so what's bad about it in your opinion?
It's the same. It's Mad Max. Mad Max was Assassin's Creed and Mad Max. The repetitive copy paste quests, and there's insane amounts of them.
Oh god.
I never found any of them engaging from the first game. The first game was basically just it was flags, right? There was nothing but flags.
I remember those flags. Yeah, I remember those.
And then the second game they got a little more creative, but I didn't find any of that interesting, and I just felt it And the Assassin's Creed game just eventually started like a blueprint that moved on for the entire generation of how to do open world games. I don't want to say lazily, but other developers put more effort in.
Well, Brandon, the word I've always used for this, and it came to me the first time I played Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Wait, forgive me, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. Because the title is so important.
Thank you.
You know we're sticklers for accuracy on SDGC, Anthony.
I want to make sure I get it right. But like, as soon as I turn on that game, and you have to sort of, every Assassin's Creed does the same thing. Where it's like,
stuff.
Yeah, you do the Animus stuff, and then you got to do the introductory mission, and then it finally says like, open your map and see all your missions.
I didn't get past that. I played about 2 hours of Black Flag, and I wasn't far enough into the game. And I felt rewarded for my time.
You know, because it's not going to reward your time. It is the consumption. It is saying, here, do you want to supersize your meal? Why don't we just put a bunch of empty fucking game calories in front of you and
that's exactly
bottomless bucket of shit to do?
You know,
content, quote unquote content.
Go ahead, John.
No, I was just gonna say I really loved Assassin's Creed 2, but when I look at it and I think about why I loved it, I think it was more about the fact that up to that point we hadn't really seen anything like that before.
It's a product of its time. In 2018, it'll feel dated.
Yeah, like Renaissance Italy was not a time period that had been explored in any game that I could remember.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's what's good about it is like it did an amazing job of bringing you to unrepresented time periods.
Yes,
in video
exactly.
games.
And Ezio was a fucking great character.
The first game was biblical times.
I mean,
I was impressed with the first game being in fucking Damascus and Jerusalem.
Yeah, like Sucre or I'm not Sucre.
I just don't enjoy actually playing them.
Well, the gameplay's not good. Well, and like for a series called the Assassin's Creed series, like I never felt like a stealthy master assassin. Like
I really strongly dislike the present day Abstergo assassin versus Templar storyline.
I hate that.
There's nothing for me since the first game.
Yeah, I think that it would work if they were like no, our theme the entire time is modern. I think it would work, but it just feels otherwise kind of snapshotty. And like in Origins, which I actually think is a better game than the last probably 5 years of Assassin's Creed.
It's more RPG.
Yeah, exactly. Which is probably maybe not the same line of criticism that you're following, but
no, I understand.
Yeah, between that and like the gods thing they do with the futuristic shit, under, and like. I also like that do we murder or just beat the shit out of the Pope in Assassin's Creed 2?
You beat the shit out of him. No.
You beat the shit out of him, and then he pulls out his god weapons, and he's like, hell is just a word!
Yeah.
I
never really believed.
So is this like the secret sequel to Devil May Cry 4?
Yeah, they're definitely products of their time. I think Assassin's Creed 2 did a lot of shit right in its time. I don't know if I want to play it again in 2018.
Assassin's Creed 2 is very empty, right? Like the in 2018, it just feels very thin compared to the open world games that have followed it.
Yeah,
but the stuff that is there in 2, like the thing that is always, this isn't true for everybody. The most interesting thing in the world to me in a video game is just inhabiting a space. And Assassin's Creed 2 lets you inhabit a space really well.
Exceptional.
There isn't a lot to do there. But it's really like seeking out.
I mean,
all of, like the hidden...
the climbing, like
the climbing.
That's the thing, right?
The secrets that you need to do to unlock Ezio's familial black armor. That stuff is cool. But
well, and when we talk about world inhabitants, I think Unity did a really good job. I mean, Unity is a broken fucking video game. But Assassin's Creed
Unity is a crime against humanity. One day, Ubisoft Montreal will have to appear at The Hague and answer for the crime that is Assassin's Creed Unity.
But I would say that's probably their most convincing city in a long time. Like even compared to it's a great environment, and like there's even for Assassin's Creed, there's a lot of verticality and hidden areas in that world. I don't know. I like parts of Unity. But I should
So-
move on before we talk about Assassin's Creed for an hour.
Well, no, I'd like to just kind of chime in real quick and say that my wife was a huge fan of Assassin's Creed 2, right? She loved Assassin's Creed 2, she loved Revelations, and she loved Brotherhood. I've got that mixed up, Brotherhood and Revelations.
Brotherhood's good.
And then Assassin's Creed 3 came out, and I love those games too. But I wonder if, and looking back on this, I wonder if Ezio as a character was simultaneously a good thing for the series and a bad thing, because he was such an entertaining, compelling, well acted character. Like, I was so invested in that character over the course of numerous games. I wanted to see how Ezio's story would end. I mean, we literally saw his entire life. You start Assassin's Creed 2 as a fucking baby. Do you remember that? And the tutorial to tell you how to move his arms.
Yeah,
it's like moving his baby arms, And you literally,
I don't remember that.
Dude, yeah, that's how they teach you to move the controls. Is like your father's like Ezio, and he's holding you up as an infant, and it's like move the L.
Wow, no, I don't have any memory of that.
And it's like move,
awesome.
But then it's like move the L stick, and you're like, what the fuck? I'm controlling the baby. And you literally, and in Brotherhood Revelations, he's an old man. He's in his 50s at this point. So you literally have seen 50 years of this character's life, over 50 years of his life. You're invested in him. He's a good man. He's a compelling character. And then Assassin's Creed 3 drops, and you get 5 hours with Hatham, another incredibly compelling character. And then the game pulls the rug out from under you and gives you Connor, who the entire game just goes, "Where is Charles Lee?" And he is one of the most boring wooden protagonists in any game. And I don't feel like I feel like everybody has measured an Assassin's Creed protagonists to Ezio ever since that trilogy of games, and it just hasn't held up. And I think that's one. It may be petty, but that's one reason that the series just has not resonated with me since those games.
So very quickly, the Assassin's Creed Defender needs to log on, and I will tell you, I would say Ezio is the embodiment of AAA game development in its worst ways, in that they find something that's very effective, very compelling, and they realize it's very compelling, and they say, okay, how can we keep this train going, rather than letting something sit on the shelf and be its own thing. And then you end up having these iterations on the same formula. They're all okay, but they're all a little bit weaker than last entry, which is the truth with the Ezio storylines. Also, Connor, you're right, less compelling, but they tried some interesting things in that he was a minority character when he was even less frequent than it is now, and they did a ton of very, very good research on using the right kind of language.
I was impressed with that, yeah.
Yeah, like they did some good shit, but I would say that you're right. Like, the overall thematic thing is always looking for your daddy, and daddy issues in video games are nothing new. Tomb Raider's still talking about it.
I can't wait to see Lara finally become the Tomb Raider she was.
Yeah, when is she gonna become the Tomb Raider, John?
She's going to become the Tomb Raider basically until they realize that the brand is dead again.
When she gets two pistols again.
Yeah.
When she gets two pistols, there's gonna be that moment. But hold on, she already got the two pistols in the original reboot.
In 2013.
And then they weren't in Rise of the Tomb
That
Raider.
yeah, that's what got me. I was like, you know what? Until she shoots a T-Rex, then she's never going to be the Tomb Raider that she was meant to be. Only when she kills a Tyrannosaurus Rex will she ascend to the title of Tomb Raider. I want to go ahead and we'll go ahead and move on to games that we love. Let's talk about games that we love that have things that we just don't like and wish could be better. And this is really what I wanted to talk about tonight. And I thought long and hard about what game I wanted to talk about. I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll talk about Breath of the Wild. No. Maybe I'll talk about Final Fantasy VI, but that game is flawless, so I can't really talk about that. Same with Chrono Trigger, flawless game. Can't really talk about that. What's a game that I love that has flaws, and glaring flaws that you can't overlook every time you play it? And I think the best example for me is PlayStation 2, the very first Prince of Persia.
Sands of Time.
Sands of Time.
Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, to me, is one of the top 10 games of all time.
Sure.
A phenomenal game. Yuri Lowenthal was he voiced such an amazing character in The Prince, and I really and Farah was written as a very strong female character.
I'm a North Prince kind of guy. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. The traversal in that game, the parkour, the wall jumping, I mean, was so satisfying and so well done, and the time mechanic, Anthony, was so good, and everything came together. I'd never seen anything like that. If I could change one thing about Prince of Persia, it would be the combat.
I would just take it out entirely. Take all the combat out.
I agree with you. I don't think the game needed it. I think that there's this misconception, and I think we're starting to move past that, but there was this misconception, especially back then, that if it didn't have combat, people weren't going to buy it, or people weren't going to like it. There needed to be some form of...
For a game of that budget.
I think that misconception holds today, John.
It does. I was going to mention the same thing. Like, that hasn't gone away.
We've played Vampire.
Oh god,
Vampire,
yeah, that's a good point. That is some shit combat. But I could rag on The Witcher 3 for having bad combat, but everybody expects that from me anyway. And you should expect it from The Witcher 3 because it does in fact have bad combat. But I agree with Anthony. I would Zach, did you ever play Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time?
I don't think so, John.
So you owe really you owe it to yourself to go play this game. It is an incredible story.
It holds up.
It really does.
Did you say nothing else really does what it does?
Is this Nintendo 64?
No, it's PlayStation 2.
GameCube, PlayStation 2.
There was a Prince of Persia 64.
Okay.
Yeah, there was.
Okay.
It's shit. Absolutely.
Okay.
Shit.
And look, I'm not gonna say the combat is terrible. It's not bad. It's just completely unnecessary.
It's functional.
It felt floaty. It like hit detection was off. It didn't feel like it had any place, and it broke up the pacing of the game. Like aside from the combat, Prince of Persia was an excellently paced game. It took.
Here's the thing.
Go ahead.
About Prince of Persia: The Warrior Thing. They're like, obviously everyone hates it as a sequel, right? Because they went all like Godsmack.
Yeah,
It definitely became a stained video.
But for the gameplay, it was actually a pretty big improvement over Sands of Time because the combat was upgraded so much.
Now I've just got this image of the prince bouncing along pillars, and he's like, "I'm on the outside. I'm looking."
Been a while since I've been.
The prince is like climbing up a pillar, and all of a sudden you hear, "She fucking hates me." Yeah, na.
Prince of Persia 4 for Nintendo Switch featuring Puddle of Mud.
Oh! What if the prince was just like swinging from chandeliers and it's like, "Can you take it all the way?"
Now I actually want that game.
Oh my god.
I'm sure that's very easily made.
When you shoved it in my face. Oh, I love this podcast. This is good content. This is good video game content. But no, that's what I would change about a game I love. Prince of Persia, just take the combat out because it wasn't great, and it broke up. I still got that mental picture in my fucking head. It broke up the pacing. Like it was. You had these huge giant puzzle rooms, and you had to come up with innovative ways to get through them, and then all of a sudden in the middle you've got sand zombies pop up because sand zombies. You gotta have sand zombies. I don't know. It was just incredibly.
Gotta have the sand zombies.
It was incredibly unsatisfactory to me. Let's move on to Zach. What about you, man? Give us an example of a game that you love, but talk about something that you want to improve.
Sure. So this one probably is not all that uncommon. Is Wolfenstein 2 is a fucking great video game. Mm-hmm. And somehow they made it have mediocre combat.
Ooh, that's a
man. Good call. Yeah. Good call.
Yeah.
People aren't gonna agree with that, but I will.
Yeah, no, that's a good video game, and it's something they never fixed, which is weird. I've heard the same thing about the Switch version, so they definitely didn't address it. But the game had really strange hit feedback, both when you're doing damage and taking damage, especially when you're taking damage, which really made the game a frustrating thing to get through. I remember the first night it came out, I was extremely excited to play it. I waited for my significant other to get home because she wanted to see how the game is because she knew I was looking forward to it. And I remember being like on the second or third level when you're in Manhattan and being like, I don't know if I like this game.
Brutal. When you get into Manhattan and you have to go out of the tunnels and there's that like bombed out side of a apartment building. and there's like the path that's above, the path below, and
they suggest it can be a stealth thing, and like you just can't stealth it.
No.
Yeah, in every single way the combat is better in the first.
It is, Zach. I was going to say that the combat feels markedly
the combat is better, but
the
story is so strong, and I think the story hit hard because of the last 2 years that we've had. Wolfenstein 2 is still one of my favorite games this generation, but that combat is irredeemable, and if I ever come back to it, I refuse to play on anything other than the easiest mode.
So Zach, let me ask you this. Would you still be saying, and I agree with you, it's especially like considering the pedigree of the public, like like Doom. After playing Doom, you're like, oh man, like what's going on here? Or even the first Wolfenstein. But had you not played the first Wolfenstein, which I think had markedly better combat, would we still be saying this is bad combat, or are we just measuring it to standard?
No, it's still bad combat. Any first-person shooter where you can't tell if you're wounding someone or killing someone, or like I always felt like I had over 100 health. So this game, for people who don't know, you have a metric that says 100 health, and sometimes you can go over it by overcharging your character. Yeah. I always felt like I was above 100, and then suddenly it was like 15, and my character was like one shot, and it always just felt like the distance to get there was 2 bullets, no matter the difficulty. Any first-person shooter, regardless of the story, if the hit feedback isn't there, it feels weak. And Wolfenstein was just that. It was a weak shooter, which is weird.
Zach, and you guys tell me if you agree, but I feel like there was one particular level where that problem is compounded by 100, and that's the courtroom level.
The courtroom level is hard. Yep.
Which was I'm not gonna lie to you, I was in there and I was playing on normal, and I wish I
played it on a higher difficulty. I wish Jesus. I counted how many times.
Yeah. 2 hours. Yeah. It took me 2 hours to get through that one.
I want to say it took me about 2 hours on the.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I almost deleted it.
Maybe an hour.
That almost took me off the game completely. Like, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, and I felt
considered like dropping the difficulty.
Yeah, and it was. I think that was one of the sections where I felt like. And I hate when I do this in a game where you feel like I have to do it in the FromSoft games too, where you have to use the mechanics to cheese to win, right? So you find a corner where you can kind of glitch the AI. I do that all the time in FromSoft games, and I feel terrible about it, but like you got to do it sometimes.
The AI is idiotic in Wolfenstein as well.
It's really
bad. It's never dynamic enough for you to sit there and say like, oh, well, this is a stand-up fight.
Yeah.
You always have to cheese it. You always have to find that one corner that you can hide in.
Right.
And say, oh, well, they're not going to be able to hit me here for long enough.
And you couldn't do that in the courtroom level. Like, I looked for any way to cheese
there's nowhere to hide, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and it's all frustrating because there are a few, like, I remember the Venus levels had particularly compelling stealth combat sections. Like, there are parts of that game that work, and it's when, surprisingly, a game that's built on being big, loud, and violent is best when it's quiet.
And the first Zach, I feel like stealth in the first Wolfenstein was completely viable and done so much better. Like,
you can throw knives and almost nothing else in the first Wolfenstein.
There's one level. It's in the first Wolfenstein where Anya's father is he's driving you, and you're going through that base in the rain, and you can stealth your way through that whole thing and not have a single engagement with an enemy. And you can't do that.
The leveling mechanics in the first Wolfenstein 2 are so much more interesting.
They are, yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, you've been throwing a lot of knives in stealth mode. You've done it enough times. Now you can throw more.
And it felt like, it's like one of those things, and I think the Assassin's Creed games are always really guilty of this too, is like, I don't like a skill tree game where it's like, you've been doing a lot of a single thing, spend it however you want. Like, I like the idea of, you've been focusing on this one thing, you're better at it now, which is like real life, right? And that works in a single-player game. Yeah, no, Wolfenstein 2...
It works in everything except Final Fantasy 2.
I wish it does.
Let me explain real quick.
Yeah, please do.
In Final Fantasy 2, you would level up your stats by, you would level up magic by using spells, and you level up HP by taking damage. So the best way to cheese this is to have your party members attack each other until their HP stat goes up to the highest.
And you can totally break the game doing that.
Basically, start the game, and you just tell your party members to attack each other, and then you...
And you get...
Wolfenstein 2 is a great fucking video game with terrible combat.
Yeah.
All right. Anthony or Brandon, what you got?
Let's roll, Anthony. Let's do this.
All right. So, the fact that we brought up Final Fantasy 2, the second weirdest Final Fantasy.
Oh, you're gonna do? Are you gonna do it? I think you're gonna.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it in honor of bring up your favorite game of all time. I'm going to talk about Final Fantasy VIII.
Oh,
I'm going
fuck
to talk
this
about
game.
Final Fantasy VIII, a game.
I said talk about a
strong
good
opinions
game.
on
I said
Final
talk about a
Fantasy.
good game, Anthony.
I'm talking about a game that is amazing. Amazing art direction, amazing story, amazing world, amazing soundtrack, and actually really interesting combat. But this goes back to what I was talking about with grinding. And the only grind that exists in Final Fantasy VIII is, and like I chose Final Fantasy VIII just to annoy you, John.
I know you did. I know you did.
It's the only reason I chose Final
I know you
Fantasy
did.
VIII.
I know.
But the problem in Final Fantasy VIII exists in lots and lots and lots of great games. It exists in the Souls games. It exists in the exploratory Castlevania games. It exists in hell. It exists in most of the 3D Zeldas, not just Breath of the Wild, but in Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword was almost my pick for this. I love Skyward Sword, and I know people hate it, but it's the draw system in Final Fantasy VIII, and the draw system is a flagrant disregard for the player's time, where it says we're gonna draw this mechanic out. We're going to make you grind, do something that isn't interesting.
Basic ability, casting magic spells.
Yep,
dude, it made every battle so much longer than it needed to be. Oh my
needlessly
god,
long. Just needlessly long, and it goes on and on and on. And
Plus,
I like that. Yeah.
Plus,
I can't believe I can't believe I'm about to defend a game I don't like, which is Final Fantasy VIII, one of my least favorite Final Fantasies. However, I can defend the draw mechanic by saying that you never need as much as you think you do when you're actually drawing. Like that you don't need. You can get through the game by drawing a reasonable amount of magic.
But I think the issue,
you don't need to have 99 of every spell.
Brandon, I think the issue, and I think Anthony will agree with me, is that it's just too time consuming. It takes too long, because you have to draw spells with every single character if you want that character to receive the spell, right? And the draw system is, it's not even my opinion. It's just it's inherent in the core gameplay. It's more important to how powerful your characters are than the leveling system itself.
Yep.
Which
is the only Final Fantasy game that has enemies that scale to Squall's level.
It does, and I tell you what though, you can turn every character in that game into a fucking super powered powerhouse with the draw system.
The easiest way to beat the game is to not level up.
Yeah. Don't fight. Don't fight. Draw a million spells and then just never get in a fight.
Because you can junction more powerful magic as you go through the game, but the enemies are still as weak as they were at the beginning.
And it's like, I'm glad that we're sort of going into this direction and talking about the way combat works in Final Fantasy VIII, because it kind of goes to what you're talking about with Wolfenstein, Zach, where the things that are pleasurable and good and noble about the game were ruined by forcing you to cheese it. Yeah. Because the game is saying, like, we're not going to respect your time. We're not going to reconsider the way this mechanic functions, and we're going to force you to do something that's bullshit. Right. And in Final Fantasy VIII, it's drawing a million spells and never engaging in a proper fight, just running away every single.
And that's it's. I could sit here and talk to you for days about things I didn't like about Final Fantasy VIII. Like, it's one of my least favorite Final Fantasy games, and I don't think that's a secret from anybody.
The orphanage.
The orphanage, like, hey, we were all. What's that? We were all in the same orphanage, and we don't remember it.
And they forgot because they needed to make monsters to live in their brains. John,
stupid. Like, oh my, it was so bad, and there was a lot
of good things about Final Fantasy VIII. But
there were good things about Final Fantasy. I mean, it was the first game in the series to use realistically proportioned characters, so I guess that's a plus.
I like how aggressively that game is. I love that world. I love the idea that Final Fantasy VIII was a place where the apocalypse has already happened.
Yeah.
Like, the bad guys have already won. This place.
I really liked the idea of gaining money through your seed.
Seed
ranking.
That was cool.
Like having to take the test to
that
rank
was
up
cool.
your seed rank. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. Cypher was a great character. I thought Cypher was one of the better Final Fantasy villains. He was great. The other villain, Ultimeshi, was fucking terrible. But
However, GameFAQs completely ruins the seed tests.
it does. Yeah, it does.
Unfortunately.
It's also the last time that Tetsuya Nomura ever designed a character that looked like a human being in any way, shape, or form.
You were
Like,
at least
Squall only has a belt on.
a belt.
There's
He's got one belt. And then of course you have Lulu in Final Fantasy X, which is peak Nomura, as I like to call it. That was like
Belt dress.
Lulu's design was basically somebody saying, "All right, Nomura, listen, fucking get it out of your system now, because after this the belts are done. Like get it out of make a character that's nothing but belts, and this is it. This is your shot." And he fucking did it. He fucking did it. And he created a character made out of nothing but belts. And it was.
But then he made Kingdom Hearts, which is a series made out of nothing but belts. It's an entire game world that's just belts forever.
You know what's funny, Anthony? I'm surprised that we have not gotten a Final Fantasy VIII HD. I'm legitimately surprised.
That one is they would have to remake it, because the character models themselves for all of, like any 3D object that isn't pre-rendered in that game is so rough and jagged that you'd have to remake it.
See, like Final Fantasy IX doesn't have the realistic, like Zidane is
exactly.
They're all still like chibi.
When you upscale 9 on Steam, it looks real nice. Whereas if you see anybody who runs Final Fantasy VIII through a PS1 emulator, it just looks rough.
It's like that meme of you're the best looking guy at the party, and it's just like a picture of Squall's pixelated face. Yeah.
Pixelated face. Brandon, what about you, man? What's a game that you love but you recognize has flaws?
Well, let's talk about Final Fantasy VII.
Oh shit, you're going here, man.
Final Fantasy VII's got some flaws.
Dude, this is like I don't know. Hold on. Just for anybody listening, this is spicy because Final Fantasy VII, like Brandon literally cried when they announced the remake.
Actual tears. In fact, I still get I will get emotional going back and watching the remake reaction, announcement reaction videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
Because I relate. Like I am that person. Like I have a strong, childhood emotional connection to that game.
Brandon, look above my desk. Look above my desk.
Yeah. Oh shit.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, that cloud of mono art.
That's right.
That is dope. Amano did not do much art for Final Fantasy VII. At least
I've got Final Fantasy VII shit all over my room. So yeah, let's discuss Final Fantasy VII's problems. We discussed 8's. Let's discuss 7's. So what are the obvious ones everyone always talks about, right? The translation, the localization was awful.
Oh yeah, Xenogeus.
The localization is bad.
Oh, Brandon.
And everyone, literally nobody disagrees with that. Not even the people who like it.
Who here remember? What was it? This guy are sick.
Yeah, this guy are sick.
This guy are sick.
This guy are sick has been fixed in every version since the PC one.
It sucks too. I wish they'd kept it.
Yeah. But my biggest problem, my biggest critique of Final Fantasy VII is that for as much variety as they tried to add to the game with the mini games, they fucking suck.
Yes,
and they are not any fun to play, even a little bit, including pretty much everything in the Gold Saucer.
I'm trying to think if there's a single one that's any good.
The fighting
and I was about to be like the Phoenix Mountain.
The fighting. Who remembers?
God, it's terrible. It's like a really bad Tactics Ogre or something.
Brandon, the boxing mini game in Gold Saucer was one of the worst things. It was awful. Bafflingly terrible.
Pure luck. You just press a button. It's rock paper scissors.
What about the slap fight?
With Scarlet and Tifa?
I don't think that really technically counts as a mini game.
We're not counting the slap fight.
It's like a QT sequence before they were called QT sequences, but
oh my god! Oh, the fucking the resuscitation when you're doing
CPR
to that girl was so bad.
The snowboarding mini game is absolutely nothing but crashing into trees for like 5 minutes straight. All you
Zach, have we gone full
so
old
bad
man at this point? Are we in full old man territory?
I mean, I haven't played any of these, so I'm just along for the ride.
Zach, get yourself.
Breath of the Wild.
Zach, I've got an original copy. Right, look at that. Look at that, Anthony.
Are you gonna mail that to me?
Book. I'm gonna mail it to you as long as you don't scratch my baby.
Don't scratch it.
Don't scratch it, and,
So,
and you can experience.
I'll just send you back a CDRW. Crudely write Final Fantasy on it. Yeah. No, I mean, listen. I like all the enthusiasm, guys.
No,
Anthony, do you remember?
I had to bring him down off the shelf.
Oh no!
what is this?
Chillin'.
Oh shit,
Oh,
son, that's
that is
badass.
a figure. Holy shit!
That's
Chillin'
badass.
from 1998
Okay.
to this day.
I'm all over
Anthony,
that. I
do
like
you
that.
remember the part where the submarine game is in the main story? Where you play
Oh
the
my
submarine
god, I
game?
remember
You
that.
have to go find the materia
You have to
in
crash-
the
you
ocean.
have to find the huge
the
materia.
crash thing. Well, no, I mean like the actual submarine where you're like you have to lock on to the other subs and shoot the missiles at them.
Oh yeah.
So that part when they force you, because you can go back to the Gold Saucer and replay it. But the part where they force you to play it in the story, you can finish it in 5 seconds. As soon as
Yeah.
it says start, you lock on the missiles and you can lock on. And in the first 5 seconds of the game, you have view of every other enemy sub, and you can lock onto them all at the same time and fire every missile and beat that minigame in 5 seconds. Like,
well, I mean, everybody forgets that this game was made in 18 months.
and also, yeah, the minigames
Nothing
were
works.
I
the
forgot
minigames
about
were
that.
outsourced as well. Like that's a very important fact.
Oh,
Yeah,
Like Squaresoft did not
But-
design the minigames themselves.
the number of flaws in Final Fantasy VII, it's almost like the flaws are equal to the merits.
and
like-
yet, and yet at the same time, Anthony, like I'm one of those guys. Final Fantasy VII is squarely in the top 3 of the series for me. Like,
Yeah.
like it's there. Like for all its
Unequivocally.
warts and wrinkles, like it's. Then again, I'm also the guy who says 15 is the second best in the entire series.
6,
so-
7, and Lightning Returns, man.
Oh, Anthony.
The 3
no.
best in the whole
The
series.
trifecta.
Anthony-
The lightning returns is in the
Six.
trifecta.
7.
Okay. I have never
Lightning
played it, so I
Returns.
can't.
Anthony,
Can't
no,
criticize
don't do
it.
this, Anthony. All right, so I thought we would close with a quick, because we got another 20 minutes. We got another 20 minutes here. I thought we would close with something fun. An example of what each of us consider to be a flawless game. Perfect, with nothing, literally nothing you would change at
Chrono
all.
Trigger.
At all. And
That's the answer.
and so I will take a page out of Brandon's book, and I'm going to cheat a little bit. I've got 2, and you guys probably know what they are. Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger are perfect games that I have thought, and I'm not. This isn't just lip service. I'm not just saying this. I have thought when I knew that we were going to do this topic. I sat down and I thought about flaws. I tried to pick apart Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy VI for flaws. And when I say flaws, I mean things that I would change, right? Things that I'd say, okay, you know what? I'm going to change that. These are the only 2 games in existence where I have never been able to pinpoint something I would change about them. In my mind, they are perfect experiences from start to finish, and they are the only 2 games in existence that do that for me. There is, no matter how much I love Final Fantasy 15. There are things I change about it. I love Breath of the Wild. I love A Link to the Past. There are things I would change about it. I cannot find a single thing I would change in Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger. So that's what I mean when I say a perfect game. Not perfect by like a review standard, like everybody gave this 10s. Give me an example of a game where you literally cannot think of something that you would change, and it's harder than you think it is. Zach.
I think I've got 3.
Okay. Name them.
Okay.
It's harder than
okay.
you think it is. I've got 3.
Okay. Max Payne 3 I think is really good. It knows exactly what it is. The soundtrack is full of fucking bangers.
Interesting.
The story is okay. It knows it's campy. It knows it's charming. I like Max Payne. I like the character arc as cliche as it might be. I think it's fun. I think
What
Ori
about
and the
the
Blind.
ability to skip cutscenes?
That's not a flaw to me. I like cutscenes. I'm here for the cutscenes.
It kills the pacing so hard.
Ori and the Blind Forest. Wouldn't change anything. It's a hard game. I don't care. It's a good game. I like that one a lot. And my third one, I'm apparently blanking on, so come back to me. I had it. This is number 3.
We're gonna come back to you.
Move on.
Anthony.
All right. I'm going to lay it on you.
Oh,
I've got 3 as well.
You're gonna give me something controversial. I know it.
I'm not. None of these are
Okay. All right.
controversial
Safe
picks.
choices.
One of them is a weird pick that I don't think everybody will be totally familiar with. But
Think about what
I wanna
podcast you're on. There's the weird is what we do. So please.
I always bring you the deep cuts, John. That's what I do. No, we're gonna go 10 years, 10 years, 10 years.
Okay, I like this.
We're gonna go 1998. We're gonna go 2008. We're gonna go 20.
We're gonna go through gaming history with Anthony here.
Klonoa, Door to Phantom Island.
Oh,
This could be a recurring
Klonoa.
PlayStation 1one.
Now that is a title I have not heard in years.
Sounds like a venereal disease.
I think it's pronounced quinoa.
Excuse me, it's an ancient grain. Anybody listening, anybody watching that has never heard of Klonoa, it is a platformer for the PS1 by Namco, directed by Hideo Yoshizawa, the guy that created Ninja Gaiden NES. It is a perfect platformer. It's the perfect conception of a weird alien fantasy world.
Yeah.
Perfect soundtrack. There is nothing to change about this game. And when I tell you that you look at it and you're like, oh, it's a cutesy mascot platformer, I am talking about this game 20 years after it came out because it's fucked up.
Dude,
That
I have not
weird.
heard the name Klonoa in literally decades.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's a perfect game. My 2008 one, it's a little bit of a fudge because it was originally released in 2007, but it hit other things in 2008, is Pac-Man Championship Edition.
Oh, shit. Good choice. Yes.
An Xbox
I'm right
Live
there.
Arcade original. And don't come at me with, like, DX or DX2
yeah.
or any of the subsequent ones. Pac-Man Championship Edition. It's a game that takes 5 minutes to play. It's perfect. There's nothing.
And the sequel is
not
so
even the original
disappointing compared to the first one, dude. The sequel is so disappointing.
It's so disappointing.
Oh my
It's,
God.
They don't even come close to like the
Damn.
perfect clarity of.
Damn, that's a good choice, man. Shit, that's a good choice.
And the last one is Hollow Knight.
Hollow Knight.
Hollow Knight. I've been going through a thing with Hollow Knight, John. I've been going on a journey with Hollow Knight.
So Kirk Hamilton fucking fell in love with this game. Did you see? Have you seen his tweets about it?
I've not. I downloaded it the day of Nintendo's E3 Direct. I did it. I went down that rabbit hole. It took me 28 hours to finish. It is in my top 10 games of all time. It is.
Took you how long?
It took me 28 hours.
Okay.
And it's
Dude,
it's a meaty game. It's a meaty fucking game.
I saw somebody on Resetera said that it's 3 Super Metroids stitched together. And yeah. Like it's 3 Super Metroids.
There's 110 different enemies in that fucking game.
It's so good. And just like you said, like a game that you wouldn't change anything about. There's nothing to change about Hollow Knight.
I would change one thing about Hollow Knight, Anthony.
Oh,
I would change one thing. The Watcher Knights boss. I fucking hated those 4 armored. You have to fight 2 at a time. They're rolling all over the place.
Oh
and
yeah,
bouncing.
those are tough bastards.
Oh my god, those fucking things.
I didn't polish them off until they were the last thing I did before the final boss.
Oh my god, those fucking Watcher Knights, dude. Jesus
They're
Christ.
bastards.
But
everything in that game is a bastard until you get it. And then it just clicks.
I loved Hollow Knight. I played it on my Switch, which is like the only platform to play that game on, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And the it gave me the Souls vibes, that melancholy atmosphere, and the sense of solitude and loneliness that I love. Oh yeah, dude, Hollow Knight's a good choice, man. That's a good fucking pick.
The reason Hollow Knight connects with me in a way that none of the Souls games ever had, Demons all the way to Bloodborne and beyond, is that there's none of that RPG mechanic. There's no character customization. There's no doubt about your character. Like, you're set. When you need to do something, you find an item. If you're not able to do something, you need to reconsider how you're using the items that you have. That game fucking wrecks me. It's
awesome.
Amazing.
That's awesome. Great fucking description of Hollow Knight, man. Brandon, what about you, man?
Chrono Trigger.
There you go.
Easy choice.
There you go.
Also,
You mean the Steam release, right? That came out a couple months ago.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus.
Oh yes.
The
100%.
It's the mobile release.
Definitive Chrono Trigger experience that I've been waiting for.
You got to play it on an iPad 2 only. That's it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Actually, Brandon, I have a question for you
Yeah.
and John. Original Chrono Trigger or DS?
DS.
SNES.
I'm gonna go with the DS version.
You're gonna go with the DS one? Yeah. Cutscenes. Those cutscenes are blasphemy. Chrono and Marley getting married, blasphemy.
I'm going to go with the DS version simply for the ease of play. I find that the two screens works extremely well for that game on the 3DS.
It does. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
And the tie-in to Chrono Cross with the Dream Devourer.
Yep.
And the explanation,
of
Shala. I was like, okay, granted, things I think should have been in the original release, but I feel like the DS version brought it into the realm of perfection.
Sure.
And you know what? I should make the same specification for Final Fantasy VI. I am going to say that the SNES version is superior to the Game Boy Advance version because for one reason. Yes, the Ted Woolsey translation is better.
Son of a
Submariner. Like you know, I never had a problem with it because that's just pure nostalgia for me. Those Woolseyisms, but the music is so much better in the SNES version.
Sir, thou.
Than the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, no,
version.
the GBA music is god awful.
Terrible, awful. They butchered it.
It's so tinny.
It's not.
They did a substantially better job of recreating the Chrono Trigger music for the DS port.
I mean, the fact that they released that Yasunori Mitsuda had to come out and be like, I promise, the music is really good in this DS version. I swear to you.
I maintain that Dancing Mad is one of the best video game tracks of all time.
And here's the saddest part is if you go to that, you will find people in the YouTube comments talking about how they prefer the GBA version.
I can't stand it. Oh god, it fucking kills me to hear that.
There's always someone, right?
It fucking kills me to hear that.
So right. I've got my last two if we
let's do it. Yes,
I've got two and I know so I have four.
No, go.
But they're all recent. So what remains of Edith Finch?
Oh, excellent.
I wouldn't change anything.
Excellent.
I wouldn't change anything.
It's a good game. Somewhere Susan is smiling down upon you.
It's a good fucking video game. And the other one is maybe a weirder pick. And maybe it's off a high of a second playthrough. Is the Red Strings Club. Which came.
I've never even heard of that.
It's supposed to be awesome. Yeah.
It's very good. It came out on Steam in January. It's a smaller indie game. It's 4 or 5 hours long. It is a cyberpunk. You can kind of get some Blade Runner vibes from it, but it's this idea of you're a bartender who's an information dealer. And you're working with your boyfriend, who is working with this anti-corporation gang, and then the corporations and the government and these hacktivists are kind of in a three-way war, and you are an information broker, and you're kind of leveraging people's information against each other, obviously trying to keep you and your boyfriend alive, keep each other safe. And then also, as you reveal information from client to client, that increases the risk of those characters developing certain things. It's a point and click kind of puzzle thing, but like one of the things I love about the game is that when people come to your bar, you can access different emotions by making them different drinks. And as you mix these drinks, somebody might be feeling more empathetic or more regretful or more aggressive. And then you can choose which questions to ask based on the drinks you've just served them, and you'll get different responses in that regard. And the whole game has these you can kind of click this top corner and it will kind of show these webs of where your stories have intersected and how you've changed them.
I have heard of this game.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Shit.
It's good.
The name didn't click.
Yeah, I wish I had talked about it a little bit. I mean, I tried to push it. I think I talked about it on Twitter today.
You talked about it in the DMs a while back. That's where I remember
it's a very good video game. It was just on sale yesterday as the summer sale, so I'm a little bit late. The developer previously made The Gods Will Be Watching, which wasn't as good.
Yeah,
it was ambitious.
Yeah, they're a really, really interesting team, and
they're
always turning in something that's
it is similar. Yeah, I think the story is ambitious, and this is why it's kind of honorable mention because I wish it went in different directions. But some of the philosophical discussions, and one of the things I really like about the game is that it asks you a lot of questions about humanity and choice. Mm-hmm. And the game will kind of poke you for your answer, but not tell you that you're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Gods Will Be Watching was awesome at that.
Yeah,
except like the gameplay just was constantly standing in your way. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the gameplay is pretty much put to the side, and it's all narrative or mixing somebody's strengths, which is kind of a fun little mini game.
Yeah.
No, it's a good game. I think it's probably gonna stay only on PC because the controls are so mouse driven. But maybe it would work on a PlayStation with a touchpad. I don't know. It's a really good game. It's on Steam. I think it's $15. Developer publishes it.
Bring it to the Switch. Bring it to my Nintendo Switch.
Maybe.
Wait, John. If it's all mouse based, there's only one platform. PS Vita, baby.
I was waiting for it.
Get that weird touchscreen. Get that weird touchscreen.
Although I will say I'm busting up my Vita soon to do a Metal Gear Solid playthrough or Metal Gear Solid 3 playthrough. So that's I was gonna pick it up on 3DS, but somebody's like, no, John, don't do that to yourself.
Don't do that.
Yeah. One last quick thing. The soundtrack in Red Strings Club, so good. It's a mix of piano and synth and bass, and it's really good. One of the title track has a light rain mix with some of the piano playing.
I like it.
I like
it.
It's sublime. It's my favorite game of the year so far.
I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Like this is one of the best topics I think we've had in a long time. Like this was a great. I loved talking about this because I feel like in the I don't know, in the madness of game reviews and people arguing back and forth on Twitter about, well, I like this platform better, I like this console better, I like this game better. I feel like we don't take enough time to sit down and appreciate things that are done well in games that we don't necessarily like, and at the same time we don't take enough time to sit back and constructively look at the games we do love and think, okay, what could be better? Like what could we have done better? What could the developer have done better? And I feel like that's a good way to constructively pick apart a game and look at its pros and cons without coming off as being, well, I could have done it better than the developer, because 9 times out of 10 that's not the case. None of us are game developers. We don't know what we're doing. But which is why I wanted to talk about this, and I feel like we accomplished that. I feel like this was a really good discussion. And now
I like the self-praise, John. I like it.
Right? Yeah. Zach, because of what you said, I am going to try out Red Strings Club.
I don't know if I believe you, but it's very good, and I'm going
to play it on Steam, and I will take pictures of. I will take pictures of my screen.
Well, you don't need to do that, but I do want to.
I will play it nude and take pictures of myself doing it.
John's taking the shirt off.
Hourly Instagram update.
I feel like John you just go in the direction that no one wants.
You know what? I will play Red Strings Club, and I will flex the entire time I'm doing it. Okay, I will just sit here and I'm going to stream myself playing it with my arm aloft like this the entire time.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sure.
Yep. This is for all our viewers. This is for all our viewers. Right. Anyway, a quick shout out because I know he'll listen to it later. A new upcoming guest to the podcast who's never been on before. We were talking today about getting him on. He's excited to come on. Kevin Van Ord, he used to write for GameSpot, and he is the writer for Divinity 2.
Oh, that's awesome.
He is going to be on. He couldn't make it tonight, but he is going to be on very soon. He recently just started checking us out on Twitter, and he's enjoying it. So we were talking today on about getting him on, and he's excited to come on. So we're gonna work to get him on. And he actually it was funny. Like he's an American citizen living in Europe, and so he's. I was like, oh man, I forgot that you're doing the 3 a.m. It's 3 a.m. at 9 p.m. For us. And he says, no, I still want to come on. So we're very much looking forward to having him on in the future.
That's gonna roll.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. I haven't played Divinity 2 yet, but I love the first Divinity, Original Sin. It's just there's too many fucking games.
I noticed during the Steam summer sale that Divinity 2 was selling exceptionally well.
Exceptionally well. What's it?
It was like the very top of the top sellers list.
We're like one day between that and Red Strings Club. We're like one day too late with this podcast.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
That's okay.
The Steam sale just ended this morning.
Yeah. Next time.
But we'll go ahead and cut it off here. I just want to let everybody know also real quick. Mike Huber and I have been talking behind the scenes, and we're going to get him back on very soon to make up for the technical issues we were having for our E3 podcast.
Of course, we had technical difficulties for the E3 podcast.
Of course we did. It's just, that's how we do it here.
Yeah.
And I would highly recommend to everybody to go check out Anthony on Twitter at AJ Agnello on Twitter, and also, of course, Anthony is one of the trifecta of hosts on Continue Podcast, along with two very good friends of mine, Dave Roberts and Susan Arndt. And Anthony, by the way, I listened to your to the most recent episode, and I loved it. I love the conversation on squaring yourselves with content that you love from somebody you may not like.
It's a hard thing to do.
It really is. It really is. And I highly recommend everybody go not only check that out, but also go support their Patreon, because I can't think of any three people who deserve your help more than they do. We'll go ahead and we'll cut it off here unless anybody else has anything on they want to add. Anybody want some last minute some last minute FaceTime here?
No, just thanks again, Anthony, for your time, man. Always a pleasure.
Oh, dude, I love coming on here.
Anthony
I just
loves
wish
us.
I wish Jay was here to back me up about Final Fantasy VIII. And I wish there were two of me to dogpile on Breath of the Wild even.
Great.
I apologize for this, Zach. I'm sorry, man.
Oh,
well,
no, I took it well, I think. I'm proud of myself.
As always, everybody, can you take it all the way? Can you take it all the way? When you shove it in my face.